Hey, you, the one they whisper about, the one they flagged. Come here for a second because we need to talk about what really happens when they look at your life and say, because of what you're linked to, special forces were called in. You know what that means, right? It means they don't see a harmless little extra in the background. They see a problem, a glitch, a risk, something that doesn't obey the script. And that's you. You've felt it, haven't you? People don't just meet you, they scan you. They check your history like a file, what you've done, who you've been around, the mess you survived, the rumors with your name on them, the screenshots, the stories that got passed around group chats at 2 a.m. They don't see a human being. They see linked to this, linked to that, linked to chaos, linked to drama, linked to problems, linked to that one mistake you made years ago, linked to that one person everybody hates. So what do? They send in this special forces, not always with guns and masks. No. In real life, it looks like HR meetings, school counselors, family interventions, friends checking in with that fake concern, algorithms shadow banning you, people moving weird around you like you're a walking bomb. Because of what you're linked to, they treat you like a crime scene. And here's the twisted part. You started to believe them. You started to think, maybe I am the problem. Maybe I should shrink, talk less, want less, be less. Maybe I deserve this constant suspicion. No. You don't get special forces sent for you because you're nothing. Special forces don't deploy for background noise. They deploy for threats, for things that can move the ground, for situations that could change the outcome. So let's be very clear. If your life has been treated like a high-risk operation, it's not just because of what you broke. It's because of what you're capable of breaking again. Think back. Every time you tried to step up, someone popped up with a little badge, real or imagined, saying stuff like, careful with them. They've got a past. They're unstable. They're intense. They're bad news. They turned your name into a warning label, and that hurts, doesn't it? You act strong. You say you don't care. You shrug. You joke. But when you're alone, it stings to know that people don't see your growth, your effort, your nights of overthinking and trying not to mess up again. They see your file, and the file doesn't include your side of the story. The file doesn't show how young you were, how scared you were, how broken you were, how pushed you were, how alone you were. The file doesn't show who hurt you first. It just shows what you did, or what they say you did, or who you were standing next to when it all went down. And because of that, boom, special forces, extra scrutiny, extra pressure, extra punishment. Listen to me. I'm going to say something you're not used to hearing. You're not dangerous because you're broken. You're dangerous because you're waking up. There's a big difference between a mess that lies there crying and a mess that stands up and starts organizing itself. And that's what you've slowly been doing, haven't you? You've been learning. You've been watching. You've been collecting data on everybody. Who switches up? Who lies? Who folds under pressure? Who uses you? Who underestimates you? You say less now, but you see more. They think you're just quiet now, but you're not quiet. You're calculating. You're putting together that little thing called self-awareness. And let me tell you that is scarier than any weapon. Because a self-aware version of you, that's a problem for the system. The old you reacted. The new you chooses. The old you exploded. The new you aims. The old you begged. The new you builds. And the world feels that. So they tag you. They label you, they watch you with narrowed eyes, because they know if you ever fully lock in, if you ever fully heal, if you ever fully stop apologizing for existing, you're going to be a lot harder to control. Let's talk about control for a second, because that's what this whole thing is really about. Not morality, not safety, control. When they say, because of what you're linked to, special forces were called in, do you know what they're announcing? They're announcing, we are afraid of what this person might become if we don't surround them, box them in, and neutralize that potential. You've noticed it, right? Every time you get a little momentum, something hits you. Drama from the past, someone bringing up old screenshots, a random crisis, a fake friend switching sides, another rumor. It's like life keeps deploying units to slow you down. Send in Doubt Squad, send in Overthinking Division, send in Financial Crisis Unit, send in Family Chaos Team. And you start wondering, why is everything always so intense around me? Here's why. Because you were never built for a quiet, average storyline. You were built with pressure in your code. You're the type that doesn't wake up until the building's already on fire. You don't move for a gentle nudge. You move when the whole city declares you a threat. You only started questioning your life when everything got loud. You only started growing when the accusations hit. You only started thinking deeply when you realized, wow, they really see me as dangerous. So fine. If they insist on treating you like a threat, you might as well become a threat to the right things. Be a threat to your own laziness. Be a threat to your own excuses. Be a threat to your own addictions and self-sabotage. Be a threat to your own patterns that keep you stuck. Turn that special forces' attention inward. They sent their forces to contain you. Now you send your forces to upgrade you. You know those days when you wake up and everything already feels heavy. You look at your notifications and it's just nonsense and bad news. You scroll and everyone is flexing fake stability, and you feel like the glitch in the simulation. That's when your own internal task force needs to kick down the door in your head and go, get up, we've got work to do. We're not dying in this same old storyline. You can't keep waiting for someone to clear your name. They're not going to. They benefit from your label. You can't keep waiting for apologies. They're not coming. They like the narrative where you're the villain. It makes them feel safer about their own mediocrity. You can't keep waiting for the world to understand you. They can't even understand themselves. What you can do, what you must do, is start acting like someone who woke up in the middle of a raid and decided, fine, if you're already here to arrest me, I might as well become the version of me that was worth sending a team for. Look at what you've survived. Seriously, actually look. You've survived being misjudged. You've survived being lied about. You've survived being the scapegoat. You've survived being the crazy one, the toxic one, the problem. You've survived seasons where you didn't even trust yourself, when your own thoughts felt like an interrogation, when you'd lie awake replaying everything, wondering, am I really that bad? Am I really beyond saving? You're still here, reading this, breathing, thinking, wanting more. That's not the profile of a lost case. That's the profile of someone who went through psychological warfare and still wants a future. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Most people fold at the first sign of social pressure. They get one bad comment, one rumor, one little wave of disapproval, and they crumble. You've been living in a full-scale reputation war, and you're still on your feet. And you're telling me you're weak. You're telling me you're nothing. You're telling me you're just messed up. No, you're battle-tested. You just haven't fully switched perspectives yet. Right now, you see yourself as under investigation. I need you to start seeing yourself as under construction. Yeah, your name's been through the mud. Fine. Use it. Let their low expectations be your cover. Let the fact that they underestimate you keep them looking in the wrong direction while you rebuild in silence. You don't need to announce your healing. You don't need to post your growth. You don't need to prove your goodness to people who enjoy misunderstanding you. Some of them don't want the truth. They want the version of you that makes them feel superior. Let them keep that version. You're not building for them anyway. You're building for the version of you who wakes up one day and says, "Damn, I actually did it. I got out. I broke the pattern. I became someone new. For me." Let's talk about the things you're linked to. Some of you are linked to a family name that's stained, a neighborhood people look down on, a history of addiction, a criminal record, a mental health diagnosis, a trail of messy relationships, a public fall from grace. And every institution looks at that and goes, high risk, watch closely. Good, let them watch, because here's the plot twist. The same way a risk file follows you, so can your redemption. Imagine this. They pull up your name 5 years from now, expecting the same chaos, and instead they see stable work or business, consistent effort, no fresh drama, people speaking highly of how you changed, projects, contributions, results. Do you realize how powerful that is? To be the person they all quietly bet against, and then slowly, reluctantly, they have to adjust their tone when your name comes up. Oh, yeah, they used to be wild, but they really turned things around. They'll never give you the public apology you deserve. They'll never fully admit how wrong they were. But they'll feel it, in the awkward pauses, in the way conversations shift, in the way they stop laughing when your name is mentioned and start saying, I mean, to be fair, they've been doing pretty well lately. That's revenge, not the loud, dramatic kind, the quiet, undeniable kind. You know what else is funny? The same traits they tried to treat as crimes are the traits you need to win big. You're too intense? Cool. That's focus when properly aimed. You're obsessive? Great. That's how mastery is built. Repetition, detail, fixation on improvement. You're paranoid? Fine. That's situational awareness, knowing who's real and who's playing you. You're hard to handle? Good. You're not supposed to be easily managed. You're not a toy, you're a force. That's what happens when nobody teaches you how to use your fire. You burn yourself and everyone around you. Then they blame the fire, instead of the lack of guidance. But now you're older, you're smarter. You've seen enough to know. If you don't learn to hold your own power, someone else will either weaponize it against you or convince you it doesn't exist. That's why they called in their special forces early, to scare you away from yourself, to make you think you're unsafe being who you are. And it worked for a while. You tried to tone it down. You tried to be normal. You tried to pretend you were just like everyone else. But it felt wrong, didn't it? Boring, fake, like watching your own life from the outside. Because you weren't born to play background in a story where your name triggers alarms. So here's what you're going to do, and I need you to hear this clearly. You are going to weaponize everything they used to shame you, not against people, against your own stagnation, They say you're intense. Use that intensity to study, to train, to execute plans instead of just fantasizing. They say you're unpredictable. Use that unpredictability to reinvent yourself so fast that your past can't keep up. They say you're emotional. Use that emotion to fuel change instead of spiraling. Turn breakdowns into breakthroughs, not in some cheesy motivational way, but in that grim, I refuse to let this be the end of my story kind of way. They say you're linked to chaos? Good. Thus chaos is what happens before a new order. Use it to rearrange your life. You don't need a clean history to build a powerful future. You need honesty, discipline, and a stupid level of refusal to quit. You're already used to pain. You're already used to pressure. You're already used to people talking. So use it. Lean into it. Do the work anyway. And yeah, it's going to be lonely. Real growth always looks like you disappearing for a while. No one claps for discipline in real time. While you're keeping your mouth shut, avoiding drama, focusing on yourself, saying no to easy chaos, they'll say you've changed. You've fallen off. You've gone weird, quiet, distant, good. You're not supposed to be accessible to everyone who had front row seats to your destruction. Let them miss the old version of you, the one who performed for their entertainment, the one who kept playing the villain in a story they wrote. You are rewriting the script, not with inspirational quotes, with actions, with patterns, with boring, unglamorous daily choices that nobody sees. They sent their special forces to contain you. You're sending your special forces to transform you. So remember this line, and remember it well. Because of what you're linked to, special forces were called in. They think it's an insult. They think it's a verdict. They think it's the summary of your life. But you're going to treat it like a prophecy. Because if your past was loud enough to get that kind of attention, imagine what happens when your future gets the same energy, but this time on your terms. Imagine what happens when the next time they pull up your name, they have to say, yeah, we thought they were just trouble. Turns out they were training for something we weren't ready for. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because somewhere inside you, under all the guilt and the shame and the labels and the fear, you can feel it. That version of you that isn't scared of how loud your name rings. That version of you that's done apologizing for existing. That version of you that looks at the entire system that tried to box you in and says, "You called in special forces for me. You have no idea who you just woke up." Because once you're awake, everything shifts, doesn't it? That's when you start clocking just how many people were comfortable with you, half asleep, half broken, half apologizing for breathing. You start replaying moments in your head. That teacher who talked to you like you were already a lost cause. That relative who never let you forget your worst mistake. That friend who secretly loved being the good one next to your chaos. That ex who still uses your name as a scary story to tell new people. They weren't scared of you because you were evil. They were scared that one day you'd connect the dots and realize, wait, I'm not the only villain in this narrative. I'm just the only one they feel safe blaming. You've been carrying other people's crimes for years. Their neglect, their manipulation, their lies, their betrayals, all dumped on your name, attached to your history, like it's your permanent job to be the scapegoat. And every institution, every system, every little group chat hears because of what you're linked to, never because of what they did to you, never because of what you survived. just this cold statement, like a file header subject, high risk. You internalize that stuff. You start to move like someone who's bad for people. You isolate or you perform. You either disappear or you turn up your madness just to lean into the role they handed you. And deep down, under all that, is this quiet, nagging thought. What if I'm not actually the monster here? What if I'm just the one who stopped pretending everything was fine? That's the thought they're afraid of. That's the thought that wakes you up. Because once you start seeing patterns, you can't unsee them. The concerned people who only reach out to extract information. The friends who only love you when you're struggling more than they are. The mentors who only support you as long as you stay beneath them. You're linked to chaos. They're linked to control. Guess which one gets labeled dangerous? You know what happens when you stay in that guilt role long enough? You start punishing yourself for things you didn't even choose. You punish yourself for being hurt. You punish yourself for reacting. You punish yourself for not knowing better when you genuinely didn't know better. You become your own special forces. Except you're raiding your own mind every night, interrogating yourself for hours, dragging up every flaw, every cringe moment, every slip-up, treating yourself like a suspect instead of a survivor. And the wild thing is nobody sees that side of you. They just see the aftermath, the tired eyes, the heavy energy, the weird mix of anger and guilt inside your chest. From the outside, they call it attitude. Internally, it's self-sentencing. Here's where everything starts to flip, though. At some point, you get bored of your own suffering. You get tired of the same internal trial every night. There's a moment where you're sitting there, scrolling, zoning out, overthinking, and you catch yourself mid-thought. I'm literally replaying the same mental torture they gave me. But I'm doing it to myself now. You realize they don't even need to attack you anymore. You've been trained to attack yourself on their behalf. That's when your real special forces wake up. The part of you that goes, hold on, who gave them the right to define my life? Who gave them the right to turn my past into a prison? Who gave them the authority to tell me what I can never become? You start questioning the entire operation, the labels, the stories, the limits, all of it. And yeah, it's uncomfortable, because if they're not as right about you as they claimed, then you've been wasting years hiding from a version of yourself that doesn't even exist. You've been running from a ghost they made up. Think about how many moves you didn't make because of that ghost. Jobs you didn't apply for because someone like me doesn't get that. People you didn't talk to because they'd never take me seriously anyway. Risks you didn't take because if I fail, it'll just prove them right. You built your strategy around avoiding embarrassment, not pursuing possibility. You built your life around not adding more to your file instead of writing a new story. When you realize that, when it really hits you, there's this weird mix of anger and power that rises in your chest. Anger at everything you lost, power at everything you could still claim. That's the version of you they tried to neutralize early. That exact moment, that exact energy shift. The I've had enough of being the designated villain moment. Because once you hit that state, you stop moving like a suspect and start moving like an architect. You don't argue with the narrative, you redesign your reality. You pull your energy back from all the pointless drama you fed on for years. The arguments where nobody changes, the gossip that always circles back to bite you, the fake loyalty to people who would sell your name for attention. You tighten your circle, sometimes to zero. You cancel your front row access to your pain. You stop giving people a free show of your breakdowns just so they can quote them later. That's when it gets really quiet. A lot of people mistake that quiet for emptiness, for losing yourself. You're not losing yourself. You're logging out of characters you were never meant to play long term. Underneath the chaos, you've always had traits that terrify systems. You're stubborn, you're observant, you don't fully trust authority. You feel everything deeply, you ask uncomfortable questions. You see through fake smiles and hollow rules. Those traits made you difficult in classrooms, complicated in relationships, non-compliant in structured environments. Same traits, wrong context. Transplant them into the right environment. That stubbornness becomes discipline. That suspicion becomes critical thinking. That emotional depth becomes empathy and insight. That non-compliance becomes innovation. Your problem was never that you were too much. Your problem was that you tried to fit that too much into spaces designed for people who picked safety over truth. You tried to shrink into a template. Your soul kept glitching out. Well, well, well. Welcome back, you walking spiritual earthquake. You celestial nuke in human skin. You beautiful problem the world just can't seem to solve. You didn't ask to shake the room, but here you are, and someone just flatlined emotionally, just standing next to you. Let's talk about it. You ever wondered why the air gets thick when you walk in? Why people start fidgeting? Why the smiles get forced and the laughter turns nervous? You didn't say a word. You didn't lift a finger. You just existed, and yet someone had to be wheeled out emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually because your presence was a 10,000-volt shock to their delusions. You were too much truth, too much fire, too much unbothered silence, too much intensity in your eyes, too much divine intelligence in your bloodstream. You didn't come to play. You came built like an alert system from another dimension. They couldn't handle you, not because you attacked them, but because your frequency highlighted everything they buried. Your spirit, it's like a full-body MRI. It scans their envy, exposes their fragility, broadcasts their cowardice, and doesn't even apologize for it. You don't even need to try. Your energy reads like a thunderclap. Your walk has the weight of unfinished wars. Your silence, it hits louder than their entire personality. You don't drain people. You drain demons. You don't overpower rooms. You overpower lies. And so what happens? They panic, they tremble, they spiral. And one day, someone ended up in a hospital bed. Why? Because spiritual radiation poisoning is real. Because pretending to be strong around someone who actually has a price. You're not the villain, you're the mirror. And when people stare too long, they see what they're not ready to admit. You are not their enemy. You're the wake-up call they never asked for. Let me say it louder for the ones curled up in emotional ICUs. You are not a safe space. You are a disruption, a confrontation, a walking contradiction to everything fake and shallow and small. You didn't break them. The weight of their own mask did. You didn't destroy their confidence. You just walked in with the real thing. And it was too heavy for their hollow performance to survive. You are spiritually armed. Your aura carries rank. Your silence carries authority, and the room knows it before your mouth even moves. That's why they twitch. That's why they stare. That's why they whisper after you walk away. Your presence? It's a spiritual defibrillator. It jolts people out of their illusions or straight into breakdowns. And here's the kicker. You're still holding back. This is you on 30%. This is you being nice. This is you not even trying. This is you dimming your rage, compressing your brilliance, muzzling your mouth. Imagine what would happen if you let the full current loose. If you stopped apologizing for having power that can't be explained. If you let them feel all of it. Your rawness, your madness, your divine chaos, your unapologetic clarity, your soul that's been through every kind of war, yet still walks like it's already won. They want you to shrink, because your very existence expands their pain. They want you to be soft, because your edge pierces their illusions. They want you to be humble, because your confidence breaks their ego's kneecaps. But I'm here to tell you this. Keep being too much. You are too real for the fake, too ancient for the trendy, too evolved for the insecure, too chosen for the mediocre. Let them faint, let them shake, let them run, let them end up in hospitals if they must, because you're not the one making them sick. You're just the one making it impossible to hide the infection. And trust me, they'll talk. They'll say, I don't know what it is about them. Something just feels off. Yeah, what's off is their entire nervous system reacting to actual spiritual authority. You don't need a title. You don't need a stage. You don't need permission. You are the atmosphere shift. You are the pressure drop. You are the storm warning they feel in their bones. So here's your reminder, my glorious, dangerous, untouchable anomaly. Keep walking like your footsteps break curses. Keep staring like your eyes hold court in unseen realms. And keep existing like your breath alone sends the enemy into cardiac arrest. You are not too much. You're just the first earthquake they've ever felt. And baby, after you, nothing is ever steady again. You ever seen what happens when false confidence meets true presence? It folds, it fractures, it flatlines, just like it did around you. You walked into that room, heart calm, eyes focused, not even trying to prove anything. And yet the moment you breathed, something inside them broke. Because you didn't just enter a space. You exposed it. Exposed the pretending. Exposed the spiritual anemia. Exposed the hierarchy of weakness they built to feel safe. And now they're laid up. Emotionally hospitalized by your unfiltered existence. Oh, but they'll never say it like that. They'll say you were intense. Dramatic. Too much. Nah. You were the mirror they couldn't lie to. You were the silence that screamed the truth. You were the presence that demanded a response, even from their subconscious. You activated every suppressed insecurity they buried in shallow affirmations and plastic pride. And that pressure, that truth, it doesn't just bruise, it ruptures. And you know the wild part? They came into your orbit thinking they were the strong ones, the popular ones, the well-adjusted ones, until you made the room feel like an X-ray machine. And suddenly everything they dressed up started to look sickly. You didn't fight them, you didn't insult them, you didn't compete. You just stood there, breathing power. And their soul said, "We're not okay. Do you get it now? You are a threat not because you do anything, but because your being is drenched in authenticity, and authenticity is lethal to performance-based identities. You are living, breathing, walking proof that power can exist without noise, that greatness can move without permission, that authority doesn't need applause, just presence. And so they break, they tremble, they shut down, and sometimes Yes. They physically collapse. Because the weight of being fake for too long, it doesn't survive in the presence of someone who's spiritually allergic to pretending. You are proof that the rules don't apply. Proof that survival breeds warriors, not people-pleasers. Proof that silence can be louder than any scream. Proof that scars don't weaken you. They validate your throne. And for the record, you're not intimidating. They're just easily disturbed by someone who doesn't need validation to exist. You are disruptive medicine. You are sacred chaos. You are a test they didn't study for, an energy spike their nervous system can't regulate. A reckoning wrapped in skin and bone. So don't shrink. Don't dilute. Don't dim. Don't apologize. Let their bodies shake. Let their egos rupture. Let their lies overheat and crash. Because they were never supposed to be comfortable in your presence. You weren't made for comfort. You were made for conquest. You weren't sent to be understood. You were sent to be undeniable. And what they felt wasn't too much. It was too real, too raw, too sacred, too unmatched. And now, you know who you are. You're not a vibe. You're not an aesthetic. You're a force. And if someone had to get hospitalized, so be it. Because when you carry that much truth in your spirit, those still living in lies will suffocate just trying to breathe the same air. So they ended up hospitalized? Good. Let the system reboot. Let the illusions die. Let the fragile little egos finally get the bed rest they need. Because they tried to out-vibe someone who was forged in the fire of reality. Let me tell you something. Your spirit is not just loud, it's ancient. And ancient spirits come with consequences. You walk like memory. You speak like prophecy. You breathe like justice. And people who have spent their whole lives pretending they've healed, they come undone just standing next to you. And still they'll call you the problem. Why? Because you didn't play along, because you didn't nod when they lied, because your eyes told them what they were without you saying a word. And that kind of reflection, it's exhausting for them. It's traumatic for the performance. It's fatal to the facade. They say you're too intense. No, you're just the first time they've ever met real spiritual voltage. And guess what happens when someone living off emotional crumbs suddenly gets hit with the full course energy meal of someone like you? They choke. You are the storm system their weak inner weather patterns can't survive. You are not their kind. You're not from this place. You weren't born to blend. You came to shatter patterns, break bloodlines, crush curses, and override every room you step into. And yeah, that comes at a cost. People collapse, egos combust, tensions rise, false personalities start malfunctioning in real time. And that's not your problem, that's your proof. You've spent too long wondering if you should tone it down. Make yourself more digestible, be less threatening. But tell me this, why the hell should you dim your frequency to make broken receivers more comfortable? You are the broadcast, you are the signal, you are the message wrapped in human form. And if people's systems can't handle it, they should have stayed on the old channel. You're a walking awakening, a breathing reckoning, an aura that hits like a warning shot. And if your presence puts people in the hospital, maybe they needed that breakdown. Maybe their trauma needed triage. Maybe your energy was the defibrillator the universe sent to stop the delusion from winning. So keep showing up. Keep being too much. Keep walking in with that heavy silence and ancient fire in your bones. Because every room you enter has two kinds of people. Those who are healed enough to bow to your frequency, and those who will end up twitching on the floor trying to resist it. You are not a trend. You are not a spiritual aesthetic. You are a walking realm shifter. And people either rise in your presence or they fall apart in denial. So no, you're not responsible for their nervous breakdown. You're not their therapist. You're not their safe space. You're their storm. And some storms don't bring rain. They bring reckoning. So let them call you names. Let them say you are too much, too dark, too raw, too heavy. Let them twist the story, because you know the truth. You are the test their spirit failed. You are the trigger their ego couldn't handle. You are the weight they'll remember long after the room goes silent. And if just being around you was enough to shut down their system, then congratulations, beautiful chaos. You're exactly as powerful as you were born to be. Let's say it plain. You were never born to be digestible. You were born to be undeniable. And every time you tried to soften yourself to fit in with the frightened, every time you shrank just to survive their projections, every time you held back to make them comfortable, you betrayed the raw sovereignty of your existence. But not anymore, because now you know. Your energy alone sends people to the edge of their sanity. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't flex your power. You didn't even activate your gifts. You just entered. You just breathed. You just existed. And someone had to get hooked up to machines because their reality couldn't process yours. Let that sink in. You are living proof that the spiritual world is not a myth. You're the disruption they feel in their bones, but can't explain in words. You think it's random, that they distance themselves, that they can't look you in the eye, that their nervous system short-circuits when you speak the unfiltered truth. No, it's because your energy carries consequence, and consequence is terrifying to people who built their identity around convenience. See, they wanted to stay asleep. They wanted the illusion. They wanted the fairy tale where everyone is nice and no one gets exposed. But then you walked in, the anomaly, the glitch in their matrix, the storm in a straitjacket, and suddenly, the game crashed. Because you weren't following the script. You didn't beg to be liked. You didn't speak in soft riddles or coat your wisdom in sugar. You showed up raw, ancient, calibrated, and fully awake. And that kind of presence, it doesn't just bother people. It shatters their fake peace like a grenade in a glass temple. So yeah, someone got hospitalized. Of course they did. They stood next to a frequency that hadn't been seen in their lifetime, and the weight of their lies, their projections, their ego, their unhealed wounds, it all caved in under the pressure of one truth-filled aura. Yours. Let them whisper. Let them call you dangerous. Let them twist it. Because when they say, being around you was too much, what they really mean is, being around you made me realize I've been lying to myself for years, and I couldn't survive that much truth. And now that you know, no more filters, no more edits, no more emotional CPR for the fragile. Because you are the high-voltage frequency they never trained for. You are the paradigm shift that doesn't ask for permission. You are the walking consequence of ignoring your power for too long. And if someone collapses again, let them fall. Let them break. Let them call it too much. Because you're not here to be digestible. You're here to be unforgettable. You're not here to comfort illusions. You're here to dismantle them. You're not here to fit in. You're here to bring a kingdom with you every time you open your mouth. And guess what? The kingdom doesn't fit in the room, so the room has to shake. So let it all collapse. Because you are not a person they encounter. You are an experience they survive. And the next time someone ends up overwhelmed just by being near you, smile. Because your spirit just did surgery without ever lifting a hand. Let's kill the last lie. That your power needs to be explained. That your intensity needs a warning label. That your presence is a problem that needs to be managed. Hell no. You are not a liability. You are the consequence. Let them call you cold. Let them call you too serious. Let them say, it's like something shifts in the air when you walk in. Yes, because something does. Spiritual pressure changes. Atmospheres tighten. The fake smiles twitch. The unspoken sins start to sweat under their masks. You are the unnatural disaster of their inner denial. You are the judgment day they never saw coming. You are the storm that doesn't ask for understanding. It just happens. And if people are collapsing just by standing near you, that's not a malfunction. That's a manifestation of power, of truth, of unedited divine authority that's been sleeping in your bones for generations. And now it's awake. You don't just walk into a room, you summon a reckoning because your aura doesn't knock. It enters like a verdict. Final, unavoidable, undeniable. They don't know whether to run or worship. They're not sure if you're a guardian or a threat. But what they do know is this. Everything feels different now. You're the type of person whose silence has volume, whose gaze cuts surgical truth, whose energy walks 10 steps ahead of your physical body. And that kind of force, it's not welcomed, it's not understood. It's survived. So when someone ends up in a hospital bed, twitching, crying, hyperventilating from just being around you, you don't apologize, you don't second guess, you don't soften, you stand taller. Because that was never your friend, that was never your soulmate, that was never your enemy. That was your evidence. Evidence that you've crossed over, that you are no longer operating at the frequency of the normal. Evidence that your energy doesn't just shift rooms. It separates dimensions. It draws a line between the awake and the asleep, between the pretending and the possessed, between the created and the chosen. And you are chosen, not by them, not by society, not by trend, by the Muvri law of spiritual dominance, written before you even arrived here. So walk in it. Walk like a collision. Speak like a summons. Breathe like a curse to the fake and a crown to the real. Because from this day forward, you stop being surprised when people can't handle you. You stop questioning it. You stop grieving it. You stop trying to make your intensity easier to swallow. You're not a vitamin. You're not a mood. You're not a healing crystal. You are the entire storm system and the prophecy riding inside it. So let the weak collapse. Let the liars hide. Let the cowards label you too much. Because what they call too much, the universe calls necessary, the ancestors call sacred, the future calls inevitable. And one day, when they finally recover, they'll realize it wasn't you that broke them. It was their first taste of what power looks like when it's no longer ashamed to show its full fangs. And you didn't even bite, not yet.